Oh, would you look at that? It's NASCAR playoff time. You know what that means? It's time to bury our heads in the sand and not act like this playoff format is absolute garbage. With how bonkers this season has been, there's no doubt that there's going to be some crazy chicanery to come. So, who are the sacrificial lambs this time around?
The final push for a second championship is upon Martin Truex Jr. and this 19 bunch. But there are a ton of issues that need to be addressed. Firstly, last year's playoff disaster cannot be ignored. They absolutely cannot afford more misfortune like that to occur again, because they simply don't have the playoff points to bail them out of it. Secondly, this team has never felt fully in sync all season. The year has been a lot like 2022, where despite generally running competitively, victory lane always eludes them. Not to mention that there have been questionable moments with James Small's crew chiefing. Thirdly, just how motivated will Truex be for this push? He could easily be like a high school senior who contracts senioritis and just completely checks out from everything, running on autopilot. And finally, the JGR engine program could bite them badly. One ill-timed kaboom, and it's all over.
Did somebody say boom?
My faith in this team going deep in the playoffs aren't exactly strong right now. I just hope he can experience one last moment of glory. Come on, Truex. We weren't able to get that with Harvick last year. It would be awesome to be able to see that this time around.
It's been both an improvement and a slight disappointment for Ty Gibbs this season. On the positive side, he's made the playoffs. Many people expected him to be fair. However, sophomore slumps are a real thing in NASCAR. He's had several strong runs, resulting in top fives this season, showing that he can compete at a high level in this series. However, the negatives are that they have had no consistency since roughly April. Some weeks they're a top 10 contender, others they're nowhere to be found on track, not to mention several engine problems in the JGR camp. As a result, this team has still not found victory lane. Remember, this kid won in his Xfinity Series debut at just 18 years old. This is not something we're accustomed to seeing from the young Gibbs. This 54 bunch need to approach these playoffs as a learning year. He has a few solid tracks for him in the early rounds. They gotta capitalize on that if they want any chance to make a deep run. If you want to see everything wrong with the win and you're in rule, then you don't need to look any further than these jokers. There is no justifiable reason that Harrison Burton should be even sniffing a playoff spot, let alone having one. But this is the type of chaos NASCAR wants. Calling the driver who is dead last of full-time drivers a championship contender is an insult to his fellow competitors who actually belong to be here. It sucks too because his win is such a feel-good moment for the sport. If win and you're in was not a thing, then his win would have been better off for it. It's a shame that NASCAR's insane gimmicks have to overshadow such a great and could be iconic moment in the sport's history. At least he won his race cleanly, unlike a certain other backmarker I know. Who saw this coming? Stewart-Haas Racing clutching up in the final race of the regular season to score what is likely their final win ever in the Southern 500? Now that's what I call a good story, especially since Briscoe is the only Stewart-Haas driver who has any legitimate claim to even be here. This 14-team season has been their typical selves, mostly mediocre with a few flashes of brilliance. Although whenever they somehow find their way to the front of the field, silly things begin to ensue. For as good as the fields are, they'll have a tough road ahead of them if they want any shot at a deep playoff run. It would take an absolute miracle. Wait a second.
Alex Bowman and this 48 team are clearly the weakest team at Hendrick Motorsports. They are also a top 5 Chevy team this season. That's despite barely ever running up front and leading basically no laps this season. However, they do finish well, which has been their greatest strength. It'll be tough for them to be anything more than a round of 12 exit, but they certainly have the capability to go deep into these playoffs if they keep their heads down and grind out solid, clean races. you can never count out a Hendrick Motorsports team in the playoffs. They will always find some kind of obscure magic that makes their cars better during this time of the season. It's kind of their thing. Congratulations on your Atlanta win, Daniel. It was awesome. It's also the only reason you're even here. Trackhouse racing as a whole has been underwhelming this season, which is a far cry from when he was last in the playoffs 2 years ago, where he was a power steering failure away from the round of 8. There's not much hope that he will advance beyond the opening round. But hey, at least he made me look like I actually know what I'm talking about by predicting he'd make the playoffs.
Austin Cindric making the playoffs this year is a lot like when Eric Almirola won at New Hampshire a few years ago. By and large, this is a bad race team. However, they were able to put together an admittedly good performance at Gateway. That resulted in him getting the win because the 2 fastest cars hit their self-destruct buttons. The only other thing they have done this season are some strong superspeedway runs. They're one of the many teams caught up in the logjam of strange winners who somehow stumbled into a playoff spot, and it's going to take a lot for them to try and break free from that pack. Hopefully, more cars implode in on themselves for them to have a fighting chance.
Joey Logano and this 22 group have been a total disappointment this year. The only reason they're here right now is because they got bailed out at Nashville by having a fuel tank built by the reanimated corpses of Junior Johnson and Smokey Yunick. It makes no sense too, because this is an even number year. Shouldn't he be, actually good this season? For whatever reason, this team just can't get their stuff together. Unless NASCAR decides to have more races with option tires, they're going to have an incredibly difficult time at being competitive for this championship. But this is Logano in an even year. There's always something controversial that goes on in these playoffs for him. This has been a weird season for Brad Keselowski. He finally won again at Darlington, and he's been one of the best 4 drivers this season. However, they are streaky. They started off slow, then went on a hot streak where they were routinely finishing in the top 3. Then they've just been vibing. To be fair, they could have won the Brickyard 400 with the elongated fuel tank they loaned from Team Penske. That makes it quite difficult to gauge what this team will do. At their best, they can make an underdog run at Phoenix. At their worst, they could fizzle out in the first round. Whatever happens, they surely will be an incredibly interesting team to follow in these playoffs. That is until Matt McCall inevitably makes a stupid strategy call. Can they send his ass to the Guangdong Tigers already?
All right, Charles, who you got?
Yeah. He's either playing in China or Japan.
China or Japan. We need to
That's
be
not the name of the
more
team.
specific.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
This team is an enigma to me. Chase Elliott is undoubtedly one of the best drivers of the year this season. His average start and average finish don't lie. The top 20 streak at the start of the year was incredibly impressive. But just like last year, they don't lead laps and win. It's really a continuation of last season, where they also ran good consistently, just without being around first place. I have no clue why this is the case with this 9 bunch, but it could cost them dearly. Someone on the Hendrick campus better let them know that it's not 2003 anymore. Just running good isn't good enough to win a championship. At least Hooters got to go out on top as victors. Too bad that they didn't pay for it. How will you blow it this time? There's no need to have any diatribe about his season, so I'm gonna be blunt. He's never gonna win a championship. So might as well embrace the pain and see what contrived nonsense the universe will conjure up to prevent its ultimate collapse of reality itself, i.e. a Denny Hamlin championship. Whatever it is, I just hope it's funny. Makes for better content.
So much pain.
Thought about killing myself.
It's not been the greatest championship defense season ever, but Ryan Blaney does still have a strong chance at going back-to-back. For what it's worth, they have been the most competitive Ford team this season, despite the manufacturer's struggles. He could easily win at most of the tracks in these playoffs, so as long as there's no shenanigans, they should be fine. And they have a strong case at the championship 4. They are going to be a serious contender for everyone else to deal with. Let's run it back, boys. This has been the most stereotypical William Byron season imaginable. Bro has basically vanished off the face of the earth in the summer, after winning 3 races and being competitive in the springtime. This cycle has happened in each of the last 4 years, including this one, and each year, he magically gets good again in the playoffs. Anyone who thinks Byron has no chance at this championship is not paying attention. Hendrick Motorsports always does this crap, and this is no different. Bro is probably gonna find his way into the championship 4 again, because that's just how this works.
Tyler Reddick and this 45 team have accomplished something that I never thought was possible for 2311 racing: consistency.
You know what I like about Gex? Consistency.
They are in the top 10 and top 5 basically every week. It's quite impressive, all things considered. There is a valid argument to be made that he is the best driver of the entire season. If they can put more races together like they did at Michigan, then they are going to be incredibly difficult to beat. There's not many races in these playoffs that I find to be problem areas for this group. Hopefully for your sake, you won't feel the wrath of Chris Buescher at any point either.
This is the best chance that Christopher Bell has ever had at making it to the Championship 4, without relying on a clutch win in the round of 8 to get there. To be fair, he hasn't had many before this. What's different this time around is how high he is on the grid. This man has been gathering stage wins like he's 2017 MTJ. He leads the series in stage wins and has a handful of wins to boot, the most notable of which is his win at Phoenix. If he gets there, he might be the biggest threat to win it all. So it's a great thing he's had the season he's had. My only concern is that this team is quite inconsistent still, which could easily snowball into an elimination with this wacky format. Not to mention those worrisome JGR engine problems. Good luck, boys. Better hope you can get some rain along the way. Is anyone surprised here? Of course Larson and this 5 crew are at the top of the grid. Once again, they're almost always up front every single week, and have won the most races in the season, and have earned a ton of playoff points. Sure, there may be some stupid hiccups here or there, but that's normal for this bunch. And they've left even more points on the table. Hell, they even left an entire race on the table. Honestly, I wouldn't mind him winning the championship, simply for the fact that it would make Jim France mauled, since it's pretty clear that he didn't want to give him a waiver. Add Jordan Bianchi to that as well while we're at it. Just don't run into the barrels at Homestead again, okay?
Well, that surely was one of the regular seasons of all time. Now we get to do the best part of all of this: the incredibly inaccurate playoff predictions. So how do I see these playoffs going down? Out in the round of 16, I have Harrison Burton, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, and Martin Truex Jr. Yeah, Harrison Burton, he has no chance of advancing whatsoever. Suarez maybe could have a good run at Atlanta or Watkins Glen, but he is not good at Bristol at all, and I think that will be his downfall in this round. Austin Cindric, kind of same thing applies there. He is going to have a legit shot at Atlanta. This 2 team is incredibly fast on super speedways, but his road course results of late have not been that good, and he's never been good at Bristol either, so yeah, I think this is going to be it for him. And Martin Truex Jr., I think he's just checked out of it, honestly. What he did on lap 3 of the Southern 500 was one of the dumbest moments of his entire career. His mind is already on some boat fishing in a backwoods lake somewhere. Out in the round of 12, I have Chase Briscoe, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and Alex Bowman. The only reason Chase Briscoe's here is because I have so little faith in Truex and the 19 team, and I think he's just a little bit better at Bristol than Suarez and Cindric, and so that's going to give him the edge. Logano and this 22 team are just completely irrelevant. Sure, they could turn it on at some point in these playoffs, but does anybody actually think that's gonna happen? No? Alright, moving on. I do really feel like Brad Keselowski has a legit shot at making a deep playoff run, but this 6 team is just way too inconsistent for me to think they can actually do it. Considering he scored the same amount of points as he did last year this year, I think it's gonna be a same result this time around, a round of 12 elimination. And Alex Bowman, he always gets eliminated in this round, so more of the same, I guess. Out in the round of 8, I have Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. I think Ty Gibbs has a legit shot at getting his first career win at any of the tracks in the first 2 rounds. Particularly Bristol, watch out for him there. I think since so many of those tracks fit into his strengths, he'll make a deep playoff run. But this is where it ultimately ends. For Hamlin, I just think that engine penalty is going to cost him here. There is no momentum with this 11 group. Did you know that they haven't even won a race in 4 months? Yeah, that penalty is killer for team morale. So I think they're honestly lucky if they even make it this far. For Chase Elliott, he's had a really good season, very consistent, but I just don't think the 9 teams' overall performance is strong enough to propel them into the championship 4. And William Byron, I think he's gonna make a really good run at it, but ultimately, I see this as one of those eliminations that occur from like 3 or less points. It'll be that close, but I think he just barely misses out. And finally, my championship 4 are Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, and Ryan Blaney. For as checkers or wreckers he's been this season, Kyle Larson is still Kyle Larson. There's a reason why he's being compared to Max Verstappen right now. If this 5 team somehow doesn't make the championship 4, then it's gonna be a lost season. Christopher Bell's inconsistency does scare me, but this 20 group I think is an overall strong enough group to be able to make it to the championship 4. They've done it in each of the last 2 seasons, and now they have an even better head start than they have in both of those years. Tyler Reddick and this 45 group are just simply a great team. There's a reason they won the regular season championship. And after that gritty performance in the Southern 500, there is no question that Tyler Reddick has the fortitude to be able to make a run all the way to Phoenix. And lastly, for Ryan Blaney, he's the guy I have making it in just by the skin of his teeth over William Byron. This 12 team overall is much faster than they were last season, and I think that's going to be a massive help for them in making another run at a championship. And so, with all that said, my championship pick is Christopher Bell.
Yeah! Oh, better luck next time, buddy. Woo!
Him and this 20 team have been the fastest at tracks that are similar to Phoenix, and well, Phoenix itself. If they make it to the championship 4, then they are undoubtedly the championship favorite because of that. Hopefully your engine is able to hold up for the challenge. And with that, we have previewed and predicted these NASCAR playoffs. I am sure every single one of these predictions will be horrifically inaccurate, and I can't wait to see the championship 4 when it's actually Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, and Alex Bowman. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you right before the championship race.
You know, I felt like with 2 to go, we were the fastest car. Obviously had to have a straightaway, and Ricky wrecked the guy. I hate to do that, but sometimes you just got to have it, and I got to thank the good Lord above. It's been tough for the last 2 years, man, and I care about RCR and these fans, and my wife, and this is my first for my baby girl. It means a lot. It is, I hate it, but I had to do it.